It was beautiful.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back from watching Twin Peaks: The Return Part 9. We've got a lot to talk about this week. I'm just waiting on Greg. He's just a couple minutes behind.
Greg's not coming. He's broken.
Is he okay?
No, he's really not. Take a look. Well, all right. Be sure to subscribe to see if Greg ever gets his mind back. And we also do a lot of great TV breakdowns, right, Ryan?
Yeah. In fact, let's just get to the lively conversation about Part 9 right now.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we had a lot of converging plot lines this week. Going back to last week, we were trying to figure out what fit together where, but now a lot of stuff got connected.
Yeah, plot moving forward. Not another Part 8 all over again.
Exactly. So we've got Mr. Cooper coming together with a few plot lines. We've got more on Dougie, and plenty happened in Twin Peaks finally. Mm-hmm. First off, Mr. Cooper connects with Hutch, played by Tim Roth, who we've finally seen.
Roth.
And now, of course, we can confirm that Tim Roth is not playing Philip Jeffries. And we're back with Chantel as well. Mm-hmm. We finally learned that Cooper was controlling Duncan Todd in Vegas. I have to admit that's something I was somewhat skeptical about. I had these feelings last week, like the style of Lynch's storytelling of the Cooper character was so close to what he was doing that the relationship with Todd to the mysterious guy was totally different from that. Like the storytelling, there wasn't a clear through line the way there was with everything else that he was doing. But now we have official confirmation that Mr. Cooper is controlling Todd.
Yep. Yeah, so he asked Todd if he did something for him, but we don't know what that is. We're assuming that he's off the Dougie hit case, which sounds like it was reassigned to Chantal and Hutch, I guess?
Right, I think he's lost faith after several failed attempts on the Todd side. Mm-hmm. So that suggests that he's got Todd onto another assignment.
What is he doing?
We don't know what that is yet.
What is that? Also, Chantal sent off Mr. Cooper with a nice bag of Cheetos, which I think is really even better than a goodbye kiss.
Yeah, I totally love that touch. She just, suavely pulls it out of her pocket and affectionately places it in his hand. It's great. It's delicious.
It's a good moment.
And in a scary twist, we find out Mr. Cooper is communicating with Diane.
Dun dun dun!
He sends her a text message that says, "Around the dinner table, the conversation is lively."
What could that mean?
Not sure what that means, but the fact that he's messaging her is a little bit scary. I mean, she's definitely had a lot of, kind of a mean attitude so far, but now it almost feels sinister, the possibility that she could be actually in with Cooper.
How long have they been communicating?
That's a good question. She was clearly waiting for that message to come through. Mm-hmm. And her performance, maybe now we can call it a performance, at the jail was so thoroughly convincing and sincere that I wonder if it was something that didn't develop in the meantime, or if she actually is that much of a sinister actor.
So the FBI has been connected at last with the Air Force's Major Briggs investigation that involves Bill Hastings. I think that Matthew Lillard was so good in this episode.
Oh my God, his performance is great. Mm-hmm. He does freaked out so well. I mean, you can just see, that is perfect casting.
Zoinks! And then Hastings describes what sounds like his attendance of Major Briggs' murder in a parallel dimension.
Right, we find out all sorts of, kind of weird things now about Hastings. Prior to this, we didn't know very much about him. We were hypothesizing that he was like a repeat of Leland Palmer, maybe. Mm-hmm. But now we know something quite different, that he is an enthusiast about other worlds and other dimensions and has for some time been trying to research these sorts of things.
Both him and Ruth.
Right.
Yeah.
And they finally found what they were looking for, and also the Major.
We gave him the numbers. And he started to float up. And he said some words. Cooper. Right before his head disappeared.
The other interesting thing, though, about what he says is that when the Major's head floated up and all of that stuff that he says, he indicates that there were a lot of people there as well.
Ooh,
and
yes.
so
Woodsman?
Could be Woodsman, maybe.
I think so.
If it's not Woodsman, then that opens all kinds of doors that we don't know. Another thing that I was sort of noticing during that sequence was that in terms of the editing and the cinematography, there was quite a lot of attention paid to Albert's reactions to what Bill was saying. And I've had this creeping feeling for a little while that maybe Albert ain't such a good guy anymore either.
How could you say such a thing?
It's just
It
this
might be possible.
feeling that I have. You know, his earlier conversation, the very blue conversation in part 4, there seemed to be something going on there too, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but I kind of don't trust Albert right now.
Also, the FBI now has Dougie's wedding ring, and the connection hasn't quite been made yet.
Right, and this is part of these plot lines converging. You know, we've been waiting for these things to start to line up, and now that they have the wedding ring, they're that much closer to actually
step
finding
closer.
Dale. Exactly, but we're not there yet.
No.
This brings us to Dougie. What's going on with Dougie? Our weekly check-in with good old
Dougie's still
Dougie.
Dougie. Sorry, guys. How
Yep.
long is he gonna Dougie? Who knows? Who can tell?
Maybe for the rest of the series. I wouldn't
Please
be
no.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, interesting parts of that plot line this week. The bumbling Fusco brothers actually finally do some good police work.
Yes, they did.
They have the brilliant idea to sneak out his coffee mug and go get prints. We're going to see how that develops.
Gonna pull the prints and the DNA off of that and see who do you think that they're gonna get from it? Is it gonna be Dale Cooper? Is it going to be Dougie Jones? What do you think?
I mean, the good money is that it's Dale Cooper, right? That's what all signs point to, but then there could be another flip in here that we're not ready for. Maybe all of his fingerprints are backwards. Who knows? We'll see.
Also, the Fuscos finally apprehended Ike the Spike. They got him and they made a nice joke about his palm.
Yeah. Once again, that's, more of these plot lines converging. That now they have another live person in custody who is connected through the food chain to Mr. Cooper, just getting that much closer.
Speaking of Dougie, let's check in with Greg and see how he's doing.
Yeah, how's Greg doing out there?
Well, at least he's staying hydrated. Anyway, back to the plot.
Right, okay, so in fact, now there was something that maybe did shine a little ray of hope for Dale Cooper fans. He has a moment while he's sitting in the police waiting room where he's staring at the American flag. America the Beautiful is slightly playing in the background.
I couldn't tell if it was playing for him in his head or we're just hearing it as we're
Right.
watching it.
Not totally sure. But then a woman walks in with red high heel shoes, totally takes his attention away from the flag. And as she's crossing, she passes an electrical socket, and that takes his attention back.
Back to the electrical sockets again.
Are we getting closer to Dale Cooper? It feels like it.
I hope so.
But my personal concern is that this is just the sort of permanent state of Dougie Dale.
No.
And if anything, I think it's actually maybe likely that we're only going to see Dougie like this in the real world. And there's definitely going to be things happening in the other place as the season progresses. The cops are getting, the Twin Peaks cops are getting closer to finding the entrance. Mr. Cooper is getting closer to finding an entrance. I think eventually we might see Dale again in the other place, but maybe not ever again in the real world.
Yeah, and speaking of those red shoes, just to cut in, it might be a reference to Audrey, I'm hoping. I don't know, maybe. Or it could be a reference to Fire Walk With Me and that weird lady that shows up and she's wearing all red and she's also got the red shoes on.
Right, when Chet Desmond meets with Gordon Cole, there's a coded dance that is performed for the FBI agents that's supposed to give them information.
As a side note, Mullins also talks about Dougie's car accident, and that's why people aren't weirded out by the way he's acting. Like, he's gotten a car accident before he started working there, so from time to time, he gets a little Dougie,
Right.
as we've been calling it.
I like how we finally have an explanation for why nobody is weirded out by his behavior
And
all
nobody's taken him to the hospital yet.
this time. Right.
He said that they would come and ask me about Special Agent Dale Cooper.
Now, sort of last in the string of plot lines, we have everything that's going on in Twin Peaks, and this week we got quite a lot to go on. The biggest thing, of course, is that Bobby Briggs, Sheriff Truman, and Hawk all go to see Betty Briggs, and I think this is another one of the better scenes in the entire series. It's got a really heartwarming quality. It's very nostalgic. It's reminiscent of the diner scene with Bobby and Major Briggs in the original series. That's also extremely heartwarming. But in terms of plot, some of the important things we learn are that, first of all, Major Briggs knew that this day was going to come and warned his wife 25 years ago.
And gave her something to give to them, and said exactly who would be there, though she didn't know it would be that Sheriff Truman.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she hands over a cylinder, and I think in almost sort of like typical Lynch fashion, they just take it and go have coffee. They don't have any further conversation about it.
Like, well, let's have that coffee. All right, yay.
Hilarious.
Also, when Mrs. Briggs shows them the chair, if you're listening to the music, it sounds extremely similar to the original score from the original Twin Peaks, but it's not quite the same. We looked it up, and it's not the same exact song, but it sounds very familiar.
Mm-hmm. Lynch again playing with sort of echoes and characters and themes, which he always does so well.
This is the chair. I can't believe this day has come. Watch, right here.
Later, they kicked out Chad from the conference room because he sucks and he's trying to eat lunch, but then they're trying to open the cylinder and they go back outside again, which seems kind of weird. They could have just done this outside. But anyway, Bobby remembers how to open one of these crazy cigar cylinders because his dad showed him once before. He just slams it on the ground and then it opens up.
Right, and from that we get two very sort of cryptic pieces of paper, presumably, of course, from Major Briggs.
Yeah.
The first page has instructions about going somewhere near Jack Rabbit's palace, which is something we find out is a location that Bobby and Major Briggs went to when he was younger. Besides that, we see the return of 253, both as expressed as time and also as distance. And we see a rendering of the Owl Cave symbol above one of the Twin Peaks, and this, for the first time, I think, really does look quite a lot like the image on the Ace of Spades.
Those match completely.
Like, yeah. I thought the Ace of Spades before, the little hook things were like kind of small and antenna looking, but that particular rendering on that piece of paper is sort of almost an intermediate, looks very similar to both. And I think maybe that more or less confirms that Mr. Cooper is going for the same thing, and that's where we're all headed.
And then we have the second page, and it has a series of number and letter codes broken by two instances of Cooper, or maybe 2.5. It says Cooper, Cooper, Coo.
2 Coopers.
Right, there's definitely like the beginning of another Cooper on that piece of paper, but one of the cool things out of that scene is that we get Hawk saying 2 Coopers, and that just sort of plants the seed, I think, that is going to continue in their investigation.
Yeah, so when it said Cooper, Cooper, Coo, it's cut off, so do you think that it might be Dougie, who's the half Cooper?
I like that idea. Dougie's sort of a half Cooper.
He really is.
That could work. Next, we got horns, lots of horns.
4 of them, and none of them are Audrey. Audrey Watch 2017 continues, and she is nowhere to be seen.
Still no Audrey, but we do get the return of Mrs. Horn and Johnny Horn, who people may remember from the original series as being the slow member of the family.
Yes.
And here we see him running through the house and either knocking himself cold or killing himself.
Perhaps. Yeah, Sylvia's like, who let him out? So we don't know who let him out, but he's running and then he hits a wall. We see frames fall on the ground and we see a hole in the wall with some blood. It looked like he was breathing though. I think that he might be just, he needs to go to the hospital.
Right,
I don't
he's
know.
probably alive. But if he's not, some people have suggested that might be what it takes to get Audrey back to Twin Peaks. So maybe sort of hoping that he's not well.
I think she'd still be a good sister and show up at the hospital, don't you think?
We can hope.
Audrey, come back.
Next, we see Ben and Beverly, who continue to be puzzled by the sound in the Great Northern, and they get a little bit too close for comfort and avoid beginning an affair.
Yeah, Ben's changed. He's a changed man. This is not the Ben we once knew.
Yep.
He would have been all over her, but now he is showing restraint.
Ben has definitely changed.
And then, most concerningly, we find Jerry's still in the woods. How long has he been there? And now he has a problem with a vital appendage.
I am not your foot.
Yeah, so he's got a bad foot now. Maybe like a really bad foot. And besides just the basic concerns of how is he going to get out of the woods with this problem, I'm thinking that foot's got to go.
He's gonna have to chop it.
And Jerry's going to be the one-legged man.
That adds up. That feels real Twin Peaks to me.
I hope it's not true, but we could be going there.
And then lastly, the episode closes out with 2 new characters at the Roadhouse. One of the 2 girls is Ella, and she's clearly strung out on some drugs that are going around. And she's also got the grossest, most wicked rash that I've ever seen on TV, and she's working in food service, so that's really not cool for the town.
Yeah, we could see this rash spreading quite a bit, and it's a very kind of
So gross.
almost David Cronenberg kind of feel to it, and that makes me think we might just be a couple episodes away from a full-blown Cronenberg situation.
All right, so before we jump into some Easter eggs, let's check in with Greg.
Greg? Boy, I'm really worried about Greg.
Me too. Good luck, buddy. Let's talk about Easter eggs. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a lot of use of red in this episode, so I noticed there were many things that were red. Let's run down all of the red things. So we had a red handkerchief at the beginning with Mr. Cooper. Then we also had red mugs at the Vegas police station. Then we have the woman's red shoes, and then we have the red chair that Lucy and Andy buy online. Then we have Lucy's outfit, which is also red. Sylvia's sweater is red in the scene where she's checking on Johnny. And then the chair in the Briggs house carrying the hidden message, also red. And then the sun and the crescent on Major Briggs' note. And then lastly, the pen that Hastings uses to circle and identify Major Briggs is also red. So much red, what does it mean? I think you're just supposed to notice them.
And with all of that red stuff, oddly enough, no red balloons this episode.
Missed opportunity. Really. Could have had a red balloon on the floor again and confused us all with its presence.
Go
Anyway.
figure. Now, the next Easter egg thing I think is so freaking cool because it's so freaking cool.
Yes.
But apparently, they went out and made Bill Hastings' website that he talks about in his interrogation.
Yep, and it's GeoCities as heck because it's from the 90s. But anyway, if you take a look at this website, there's so much that you can dig into that we won't go through all of the Easter eggs that are in there. Maybe that's a different video, or maybe that's something you should find out yourself. But a few of the things that we did discover are that you can click into things and find videos, like if you click into his past blogs, what do we see?
Yeah,
Some static.
Yeah, there's a link that says read my older writing, and you click on that, and it takes you for a moment to a fake 404 error page, and then it like statics out, and there's this continuous. Actually, I didn't get to the end of it, but it's basically a bunch of Twin Peaks music, stuff from the Roadhouse, stuff from Badalamenti with the weird static and interstitial noises and things, and I'm sure people are gonna find lots of stuff hidden in the sound there.
It sounds like they're just playing the Twin Peaks The Return soundtrack in it. But
There's also
it creeped me out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's creepy as heck. Don't do it at night.
Yeah.
There's also 3 sound files on the main page that you can listen to that are Scratchy Electricity and Vortex. And there's, I'm sure, stuff in there to look for, too.
Also, if you look, the visitors number changes every time you log on. It goes backwards and forwards. Is this the future or is this the past?
There are a couple of interesting things, though, to pay attention to with regard to dates. Now, the first thing is that it says that Bill Hastings hasn't been on this site since November 2015. And if we are in 2015 in the series, then that means that we're on September 29th. We're a few days away from October 1st and 2nd, which are in Major Briggs's notes. But that means that Hastings is accessing that website a few months later. And we might have to see what happens there. He obviously would have gotten out of jail.
Yeah. Also, speaking of dates, you'll notice that the site was started in 1997, which was mentioned in the episode when they were talking about Dougie's history. So they only found things dating back to 1997, and that's when Dougie's entire history started to play out.
So Dougie and Bill Hastings' website were started at the same time.
Interesting.
And one of the last things that are sort of hidden on that website is that there's some coordinates there. And the coordinates apparently go to somewhere that's actually in South Dakota. And Apparently, at least if we go to Reddit, there is a brave Reddit user named Spooky64 who is possibly actually going to go out to those coordinates and report back.
Godspeed, Spooky64.
Yes, hopefully he doesn't get trapped in the other place.
Or report back on what you find in the other place. All right, let's move on to some viewer comments. What did people say in your last video?
Yeah, I always like to get back there and see what everyone else is thinking. Enrico Mazzoni on YouTube writes, I so wish the millionaire might be Catherine.
That would be awesome!
I totally love that idea. And maybe we'll see the return of Mr. Tojimura.
Oh no. Don't even get me started on that. But
It
it
would
was
be a
the early
disaster.
90s. But don't do it again. Please. Next is a comment from Julian Ortega who said, Dale will see Diane and that will snap him out of his stupor. Diane is the key. I don't know anymore. I mean, like, he predicted this before he saw this episode.
Right.
But Diane is involved somehow with Mr. Cooper.
Yeah, I wanted to believe that that would be the thing. People are saying it's either Diane or it's going to be Audrey. But
Audrey.
Now our concerns about Diane have ratcheted up a little bit, and I don't think that this is going to be the thing.
What is she up to?
Lastly, we got a couple comments from Second Coming of Bast on YouTube who says, Andy is a doppelganger. You saw it here first.
Sure.
Yeah, you know,
Totally possible.
I think it's a joke, but I think it's also fair to say that it could be. Anything is possible.
Is possible. His second comment was, Audrey Horne, current Madame of One-Eyed Jacks. You saw it here first.
Now that, I think, is more plausible.
That's pretty likely.
I mean, I have the feeling that she's been away from Twin Peaks, but if she hasn't been, the sort of unturned stone right now is One-Eyed Jacks.
Yep. All right, well, thanks for your comments. Make sure to leave some new ones for us below and any questions you have. And before we go, let's check in with Greg one last time.
Okay, well, we don't know where Greg went.
No, but if you want to find out if we get Greg back or if Audrey will be here in part 10, find out next week. You have to come back.
Yeah, and always you can hit us up on Twitter. Our handles are in the description.
Or check out these videos.
There's other videos.
See ya.